ワンオンワンテック始まります。今日のテーマはハリウッドからロボットへ、動画生成 AI の革命児です。言語の次は動画の AI です。少し前には OpenAI が動画 AI の SNS 空から撤退したことが話題にもなってたんですけども、この分野にいち早く参入してですね、今ハリウッドの映画制作にも食い込んでいるのがアメリカの動画生成 AI スタートアップのランウェイです。で彼らは今動画生成を超えて現実世界を再現する AI 世界モデルも作り始めています。これをロボットの操作にも応用しようというんですよね。でこのランウェイなんですけど、今年日本にも進出していて、アニメやゲームなど IP ホルダーとのコラボも始めようとしています。今日はランウェイの共同創業者クリストバル・バレンズエラ CEO にお話を伺います。トピックは3つです。ランウェイと動画 AI の進化、そして2つ目が AI はエンタメをどう変えるか、最後が動画は始まりに過ぎない。それではクリストバルさんをお呼びしましょう。 OK, we're joined by Cristóbal Valenzuela, co-founder and co-CEO of Runway. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, you just got here, or
Yes, couple
in
days
Japan,
ago.
couple days ago. Okay, how long are you here for this time?
Just like over a week, a little bit less than a week.
Okay, and how do you come to Japan quite often? Or?
It's my second time. The first time I came here was almost 2 months ago. So hopefully I'll come more often now, at least a couple times a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just to give our audience a quick introduction of yourself and the company, here's the AI-generated clip of lamp that can walk and interact with people. This has been published a few weeks ago, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is made by Runway's AI
Correct.
tools. Yeah. So yeah, this is really further realistic, and I can't believe this is AI generated. But what does Runway do essentially?
Yes. So what we do, in short, is we help companies and we help creatives tell stories. And the way we do that is we develop products and technologies that allows you to generate and create any sort of like content that you want. And so what you're seeing on screen right now is kind of a demo of that. This is a story that we made internally. It was done by one person in the company, and it's really to showcase a little bit of the diverse and complex and the capabilities of what AI is able to achieve these days. And this is just the beginning. This is like, really a touching story, but it's also the worst it will ever be.
How does people make this, like just short prompt and this was made, or chat with the models? Or?
So there are different ways of making content in Runway. It depends really on like what your intent is. To get something like this, where there's a lot of creativity and human ingenuity behind it, you have to know really what you want to tell. And then what you use Runway for is to prompt and use the models and use our AI systems to get you there. And there's no one single answer. There's no one single prompt you should use. Everyone uses differently. Everyone has different techniques. It's really a general purpose technology. And so the creative who made this has a particular way of working, but someone else might have another one. And so that's really kind of, the idea is that you can explore and have diversity of use cases, and there's no one single way of using it.
You said general purpose, so it's not just for filmmakers or videographers. So who uses this?
Yeah, so AI and Runway, I would say, just generally are one of the few really transformative general purpose technologies. And so what do we mean by general purpose? The internet is general purpose technology. The internet has so many wide set of applications, and it can be used for so many different things. And the AI revolution that we're in right now is in part due to AI being able to generalize and have applications in so many diverse set of like fields. And so when you look at Runway and the kind of work that we do, a lot of people think that it's great for filmmaking and for content, for advertising, which is great, which is true. But at the same time, the tools are way more generalized and way more kind of broad than just that set of creative use cases. And so today, if you look at a customer base, if you look inside the data, we have users in design, we have users in brands, in consumer goods, in financial services, in gaming, in architectural kind of companies, in education, in sales. It's basically, you start realizing that really AI as a general purpose technology is allowing you to tell stories. And well, who tells stories? Of course, filmmakers and Hollywood tells stories, but really every company out there is trying to tell a story. And not every company, I think every person might want to tell a story. And so for us, it's really understanding how do we create tools that will allow even a larger set of people in the world to tell a story that makes sense to them.
So not just like creators, but also like marketers or sales or I don't know, the internal people.
But for me, those are also creators. Like I think creativity for me is a state of mind. It's a way of looking at the world. And sometimes when we think about creators or creativity, we tend to think of artists, and a small segment of the world that works in content and film.
Yeah.
But I think you can be creative if you're a salesperson. You can be incredibly creative about how you approach your leads, or if you're designing like a shoe or you're designing a piece of cloth, you can be extremely creative about how you think about the choices that you make. And so our purpose is not only to serve, the filmic and the kind of creative community that we might traditionally think of creatives, but really enable that creativity that's latent in many more people. For example, a good example of this is we run a film festival every year across the world, and we're actually bringing it to Japan this year.
Yeah.
And if you look at many of the winners, these are people who have make videos or make films and have won the festival. There are sometimes they're not coming from a filmmaking background. They're not filmmakers themselves.
Okay.
They're musicians, or there are people who work in like brands. And now they finally understand that they can use these tools to tell and make things they never thought they could. And that's really like the most interesting thing I would say in AI is that there's latent possibilities that are there dormant until you have the great technology, a good set of technology. You can find ways of expressing that latent creativity that's always been there.
So, like that means AI enables like literally everyone to like make videos easily.
Correct. Yeah, I mean that's the role of a general purpose technology. But not only videos. I think videos, it's kind of one medium of expression, but there's many other things you can do with Runway. It's more of a multimedia kind of platform. But you're right. I think that's the purpose. Like, I mean, you can think of writing. Writing was many hundreds of years ago, a very small set amount of people knew how to write. And as technology got better, as the printing press got better, more people will manage to read, to write. And now writing is like, well, everyone can write, right? Everyone has benefited from the fact that you can write great stories and share them really quickly. That yet hasn't like realized in like, the visual domain, because of course, making AAA movies is not as cheap as writing a one page in a document, right? But our idea and our vision is that at some point it will. At some point, making a AAA movie will be as cheap as just writing a document on your computer.
Okay. So first, Runway and the evolution of AI video. You founded the company back in 2018.
Correct.
And that was way before ChatGPT.
Oh yeah, way before that.
So there was no major LLMs and no AI video models. So yeah. Could you tell us how you started developing the video models since you founded the company?
Yeah, of course. So you're right. We started the company in 2018, and the idea of it was, we were fortunate enough to be at a time early on where we started to see firsthand the progress deep learning was making. People think AI is almost like a more recent development, but the truth is that AI has been a topic of research and engineering interest for the last 60, 70 years. And there's waves of a lot of interest and then a lot of less interest, and those are called AI winters. And the latest revolution of AI is, on the heels of a specific technique called deep learning. And deep learning really started to work around 2014, 2015. Yeah. And as founders, we're three founders who were fortunate enough to be both paying attention to those very early developments, and also we were interested in that. And so we met at school. We studied at NYU from 2016 to 2018. And a lot of our research at the time was focused on how do you use these deep learning techniques, but in creative ways. And that might sound obvious now, but this is, in 2018, this is prehistoric times in AI. This is where AI is moving so fast these days that 8-9 years ago really feel like 100 years ago. So we really didn't exactly know and knew how we're going to get there, but we knew that these algorithms, these deep neural networks have the potential to effectively kind of do what we were just discussing, which is augment people's creativity. And that was actually the tagline that we started the company with, was Runway, augmenting your creativity with AI.
Yeah.
And so between 2018 and I would say 2022, we started just experimenting a lot with different techniques and products and research. And around 2022 was the first time I think we had more both convictions and results and some techniques and ideas that were working specifically for around image generation. And 2022 was the time also that ChatGPT came around. And I think ChatGPT and you know, the amount of progress that was happening at the time was just a great catalyzer of a lot of things. A year after that, we released our first video model, so Gen 1.
2023.
2023 was like the first video model, correct. And that was the first time, you know, I remember having a conversation with a friend who also runs a company, a big company in the US, and this is like late 2022 when we're discussing, you know, this is the beginning of LLMs, the beginning of large image models and a lot of other things. And he was asking me, you know, when do you think we're going to be able to do like, you know, video? And I knew that it was coming like in a few more weeks because we're working on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, hopefully soon. And he was like, no, it's going to happen in like 5 years. And so I think that has been like a good, like, you know, perspective of seeing the evolution of what you can do these days. And also it's a good reminder of, you know, sometimes we forget how far the industry has come. I almost think that we are in a time, in a moment where we've normalized magic. If you think about what we can do with AI, what you can use Runway for, what you can use language models for, if I told you that you could do that 5 years ago, you just wouldn't have the limit. Like no one would have believed that we would get to a point where you can write a prompt and get a hyper-realistic video of what you just described. But we can.
Yeah.
And that for me is like a magical moment of like we've normalized this very like unique technology and this very magical kind of set of things that we can do, and we're getting used to it, which is actually kind of great.
Yeah. So when I think of the other companies that already developed the video models like Google or OpenAI, they're a huge company now, and but compared to that, the Runway is a much smaller company.
Yeah.
And then OpenAI, Google have prior like LLM development. So how could Runway, the small company like Runway, achieve like those development of video models?
Well, this is like a, you know, if you look at the evolution of like innovation, why companies win in particular markets, if you remove AI from the equation and just look at like, you know, why startups are managing to like disrupt large incumbents. I mean, Google was a startup at some point, and they managed to overcome every single search engine that were much bigger than all of them. And the reason is, I think, well, there are a couple of things. One is focus. I think you have to be a very focused company. You have to have one consistent mission and be able to like achieve that mission consistently and be willing to go through the pain of like doing the things that work and the things that don't work. And I think that's a state of mind. And I think when you're a startup and you're a company, size might not matter if you're not focused on something. The second thing I would say is speed. Of course, innovation is driven by focus and by, you know, care and like thinking about problems differently. But also in today's world, I think if you're slow or like not fast enough, I think it doesn't really matter. And I think when you put like a larger company next to what we do, I think we've managed to always like hopefully continue to win because of our speed and focus. And I think that's been a constant like, you know, flywheel on the way we work. And that's a constant pattern in how startups just continuously win over large incumbents. It's the innovator's dilemma. If you can't figure out how to change, you're gonna die.
We still remember the AI-generated video clip of Will Smith eating spaghetti, like it was messed up.
Of course, yeah.
But look, somebody compared the past video and the current video on X or something, and it works smoothly now, and like a lot more realistic. So how did the technology itself get to where it is right now?
I mean, if you think about Will Smith eating spaghetti, that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, just 2 years.
Just 2 years ago. That's my point. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at, the progress of computer graphics over the last 40 years, you need to look at what computers were able to do in the 70s and then compare it to what like a Pixar movie looks today. And in 40 years, that domain has overcome and evolved a lot. And so we're seeing kind of a similar transition, but in like 2 years. So what a computer was able to do in like 2 years ago feels like 40 years in traditional like evolution of graphics, And I think the reason of why it happens so fast and what happens to get to a point where now you're able to create hyper-realistic videos of content or anything you want, I think it's a combination of, like better, larger models. I think scaling laws for video models have become kind of real, and you want to train better networks to just scale them, more compute, more data.
Yeah.
But secondly, there's a lot of new algorithmic improvements and techniques on how you improve them, and maybe to the point of how do you succeed as a smaller companies that you're innovating faster. You're discovering the things that work really fast, and I think compounding that has been the result. If you compound that's why I think models have gotten to a point where they actually work and do what they're able to do these days.
How did you secure the compute cost on the road? On the journey?
I mean, you have to raise money, you have to work with partners. We've been fortunate enough to find great partners who can help us, scale, who believed in that mission very early on. And it's about, building great products, and with those products, so hopefully you drive more attention, get more customers, and just keep growing the business so we can invest most of what we have, created into more compute.
So if I look at the, how much you guys, the fund raised, that was pretty much how you guys invested in to compute.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an AI lab these days or a research lab, you should expect that most of what you're raising is going to compute. I mean, it's how you train the models and how you make sure you continue to make this progress. So yeah, I think that's not controversial even for any AI lab who wants to create new models and frontier models.
But you're not building data center by yourself, right?
We're not building data centers by ourselves now, but
No. Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe at some point will be something we might consider.
OpenAI announced Sora first back in 2024, and they launched the app last year, and they ended it this year. So it was partly because of compute capacity. So what was your reaction to OpenAI moves, like launching the video models? Was it a threat for you? Or?
So look, at the beginning, I remember like the day they launched Sora, it was a very impressive model by the times and the standards. This is, as you were saying, 2024, I think. We had, I think, one of the two only other video models out there. And so having, first of all, a great company like OpenAI come and try to compete in your market, I think it's a great sign in a way. It means that this is an interesting market for more companies to start paying attention to. But at the same time, I think they deprecated it maybe a couple months ago. And I think that for me is a consequence of focus. Like you can't attempt to do 100 different things, specifically in this market that's very competitive.
Yeah.
Focus on one thing you're really good at and be the best at it. And I think that's a consequence of lack of focus, I would say.
And Google also announced the multimodal model Gemini Omni back in May, and they have created the editing tool Flow.
Yes.
And so they are like more interested in the video production sort of side of AI, and Chinese companies are also working on video AI models like C-Dance and all sorts of things. So what does the competition look like to you now?
It means that when you create a category and the largest companies in the world want to compete with you, it means that the category you've created is not only interesting enough, it's really important. And so almost like you want to feel and you want to know that you effectively will have great competitors if it's a great market. And so it's a kind of an honor to have Biden's and Google also trying to get more into this market.
When I talked to one creative director in Japan, he said that the launching products like Flow for Google means they want to train on the data of how actual like creators create contents. Do you agree with this, or the editing tool is more important right now in the creative industry?
I think one of the things that really matters when you're deploying these tools is the feedback loops that you get when you put this into the hands of people who have never had the chance of making content at this level before. I think that for me is less of the data and more of the patterns that you see emerging from aggregations of like users. What things tend to work better, what techniques tend to like be different. As a great tool maker, you should enable those discoveries and these new ways of using the tools, even in ways you haven't kind of thought of before. And so what you want to do more than gathering data is enabling more of that discovery and experimentation. Because in experimentation, there's a key in how new things can be built. And that's, I think, what we need more of these days.
Google is also an investor in Runway,
Yes.
right? But also a competitor. How does the relationship work?
Yeah, I mean, Google is an investor. They've been great partners with us, actually. They work really closely. I think, like, more than a competitor, I think there's a lot of complementary, like, things to do. And also the market is big enough where you can pick specific, areas of interest. And there might be some overlapping aspects or some overlapping set of users, but at the end of the day, you're redefining entire industries. I think of it more as an organic sort of evolution of a market. You have different people building different things, and it might be the case that at some point you might overlap with someone, but then since change, you just might become more complementary.
Yeah.
I think we're in a stage of a lot of complementary work with many of these companies.
Okay. You announced a $40 million investment in Japan and
Correct.
opened the Tokyo office. And why bet so big in Japan right now?
Well, I mean, it's an obvious one. We're just seeing a lot of usage in Japan, and there's a lot more usage that I think we can drive by being here. Japan is one of our biggest markets. There's actually someone posted it online a couple of weeks ago. The adoption of just AI models and AI in different countries, and Japan is like 2 to 3 times like bigger adoption, a larger penetration than any other country. It's just early on AI, and I think that's a great way of like using and scaling what we're working on with a market that's so willing to adopt. And so first of all, yeah, it's great usage, more things that we can do with many of them. But Japan has a culture of a lot of innovation, of a lot of great creative minds, thinking about products completely different. I mean, Apple in a way was so inspired by so many of the Japanese products at the time when Steve Jobs was thinking about many of the, breakthroughs that he built after. And I think part of it is that you look at the world differently. And again, going back on the idea of general purpose, you can think about using this technology in ways that maybe I'm not thinking about. And what we need right now is more experimentation. And so I want to be in a place where I can not only have larger amount of users, but also have people who are willing to think about it differently.
Is it partly because Japan is so big in like anime or gaming, or is it a big reason for you to launch?
Of course, I mean, the entertainment industry in Japan and the content industry, and it's one of the largest and most important aspects of the economy, both internally and externally. I think Japan exports a lot of IP, and that's phenomenal. So we want to work deeper with many of our partners in Japan to help them do more of that. I think gaming has so many opportunities as well, where you can start using models for that. And then we have a third avenue that now we're seeing more clearly because video models have really become world models, where you can start deploying these world models in robotics.
Yeah.
And Japan has, an aging population. It requires more like automation and robotic systems. And so it's kind of a perfect time to think about deploying our products and research into many of those robotic efforts as well. So it feels like a natural momentum to just do it.
And you partner with Mixi.
Correct.
Is it a sort of the biggest partnership in Japan for now?
It's one of the important ones that we have. Mixi is, they've been actually customers of Runway for a long time. But yeah, we're helping them, and they're using Runway extensively across the different projects. And hopefully we'll do more of those over time, where we want to come work with them, help them, and then increase their output altogether.
Okay. Moving on to the next part, how does AI transform entertainment? So already Hollywood, the film studios or other major production companies has been using Runway. So what's your big vision for future of entertainment with AI, and how do you want Runway to get involved in that?
Sure. So if you think about, the core industry and what we consider entertainment today, I would say most of it comes from either a camera, so making content, or a computer, which is you're using computer graphics or CGI to create something, or a combination of both. You can really think about AI as an evolution of that, and maybe a better analogy is to think of AI as a new kind of camera. It's a camera that allows you to not only record, the real world, but technically any world that you want. And when you have a camera that is powerful and you put it in the hands of a great creative mind, I think you can make great content. The way we think about Runway is that, well, we're creating this new camera. So our role there should be to, enable that to happen, to make it so this artifact, this device, this technology, this new kind of camera becomes extremely cheap and accessible to more people.
So you basically imagining that the AI generated sort of the content, the piece of content is going to merge with a real shot in the filmmaking process, sort of.
I think more than evolve from from a real camera. I think it's more of thinking about AI as a medium. Thinking about AI as a way of telling a story in a completely different way. And there's no specific way of using a general purpose tool like a camera. You can use it any way you want. You can take it outside, you can put it inside, you can combine it, and you can edit it. AI is a similar way. But the difference is that it allows you to create windows into worlds that don't exist. So I can point this AI camera into a science fiction world that doesn't exist. And I can capture that science fiction world that's in my mind through the lens of these AI systems, and I can create any kind of story that I want.
Is it a cheaper and easier special effect, VFX sort of thing? I
mean, I think it's more like an evolution, and it's borrowing a lot from traditional visual effects and CGI. But it's also if you think about, a major movie these days, there's, I would say, I think 70 or 60 to 70% of your average AAA movie, the budget of that goes to visual effects. And we're talking about movies that are a couple $1 million at the minimum, up to $300 million, like an Avatar might cost you. If you're spending that much money on visual effects, then the amount of people who can get access to it is very limited. So you can count them with maybe one hand. So if you get, I think one of the promises of AI, you can really reduce the cost of that high cinematic, high quality output of visual content and make it accessible to way more people. So instead of spending, I think $4,000 per second on making an explosion of a car for a science fiction movie, you can just make it for a couple cents. And I think that's just phenomenal. I mean, it helps so much in so many ways.
But on the other hand, you are also working with a major, mega studio like Lionsgate, and you guys said are going to co-develop AI models or IPs and all sorts of stuff. So what are you specifically going to do?
I mean, we're doing a lot with them already. We're working with pretty much anyone you can think of in Hollywood and media, and there's different levels of things we do. On the one hand, we sell services and models. People just buy Runway, and so it's more of a customer relationship. In other cases, we work deeply with them to help them create new models and new things they can use. And we also, collaborate on specific research they might be doing or we might be doing, where we need more people to come. I think it's just we've been overall spending so much time and so many years building the relationship with those companies that it feels very natural for us to just keep growing with them.
And you also have own studios, sort of?
We have what we call a run. So Runway Studios is a part of Runway that's devoted to making the videos you just saw. It's a way for us to tinker and experiment with the technology. It's a way of using it, and it's a way to showcase There's a lot of ways I can show you what Runway can do, but there's one way that's going to be very kind of simple and to understand is I'll just make you something. I'll show you something that will probably move you, and you probably want to know how that was made. And so that's a great kind of selling point.
Okay, so are we going to see a lot more like the entirely AI generated like films or mixture of like AI and real shot videos? Like kind of movie.
Yeah.
So what are we going
We
to
should
see?
expect. I mean, so here's the thing. The reality and the possibilities are that you have already watched many either feature films or short films or things on social media that are completely AI generated, and you just haven't realized. The point is that you're not going to be able to watch a movie because it was AI generated. You're going to watch a movie because it's a good movie.
You mean people care more about stories and?
You've always. I mean,
Right.
humanity. It's been hunger for stories forever. I mean, we drive story. Everything is a story. I mean, we're storytellers at heart. Storytellers actually, there's a theory that stories actually created language. When we think about stories, people think about, well, you need language to tell stories. There's a theory in anthropology that actually like it was the other way around, where the need to tell stories for us to survive allow us to create language. And so, it's always been about stories.
It was interesting to see A24's partnership with Google DeepMind has sort of triggered strong backlash from its own fans. So I feel like that suggests that the fans also care about like how the content is made. So how do you see that?
Well, I think it depends. First of all, it's not a zero-sum game, right? As an artist, you can choose to make whatever you want. And secondly, I think the idea of people disliking new technologies, it feels like new, but like when you think about filmmaking, people forget that the idea of filmmaking was the most heated debate 120 years ago, because people hated with all their hearts the idea that you could take and make moving pictures. And so I think a lot of it with AI, and actually when I see a lot of like, negative sentiment, for me, it's actually a good sign. It means that you're provoking kind of the right sort of kind of things in people there. And I think ultimately, at a more philosophical level, I do think AI is some form of a new medium. It's a new medium of expression. It requires you to think about the world differently. And will enable new people to just also tell stories differently.
But what do you also think about the people working in Hollywood sort of have fear about AI replacing their jobs, especially actors, and so how do you navigate this tension?
I think that's a valid concern and like a normal concern. Like I think you can fear new technologies. I think now people have not really fearing it alone might not make any difference. You have to just change or understand it and really realize that it's less about jobs and more about tasks. The tasks in any particular industries have always been automated. I mean, think about any industry, anything that you worked on. The amount of people that you require to do so has changed radically. So I tend to think about it more from an optimistic side of things, which is, yes, of course, there's going to be major job changes and job descriptions, but at the same time, there's going to be net new jobs being created. You should get one of those jobs really fast.
It's also not just about people, but also about like copyright or intellectual property, the content holders. So the Runway is like facing lawsuits alleging that it's used copyright or artwork or YouTube videos without permission to train its models. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I can't really go into specifics of a lawsuit. What I can tell you is really what we're focusing on is to help people understand how this technology actually works. The models are learning and are understanding how the world works. In the same way that if you want to learn how to make a movie, the first thing that if you ever go to film school, the first thing you'll do, your professor will tell you, is go and watch these 100 films, the best 100 films of the world. Go and watch them for like hours. Understand what makes a great film a film, and use that learning to help you create something new. And I think that kind of is at the core of all these models, is that they want to learn. These models want to learn. And the idea is that if you help them learn, you can then use that learning for your advantage. And at the same point, is a good reminder to never forget that at the core of any AI model that makes something is a person. It's just not coming up with like prompts on its own. There's someone directing it.
Let's move on to the final part. Video is just the beginning, and it's about word models. So you recently introduced GWM, General Word Model 1. That's expanding into real-time games with interactive characters and also robotics. So how does this work, and how did the video AI technology evolve into
to get to this
word
point?
models?
Yeah. So actually, like we've been speaking about world models since like 2022, 2023. So.
Oh, that's early.
Yeah. In AI, 3 years ago, it feels like, again, 100 years ago. But a lot of what we did back then was kind of start to realize that as you start scaling these video models, right? If you think more from first principles of what are these models actually doing? Why do they work? And as I mentioned before, these models are learning from data. They understand the patterns and the features within data and understand what makes that unique. And then they use that to create something net new. In that process, as you start creating more and more of this learning on video data, you start actually realizing that these video models have actually learned way more than how to create pretty pixels or nice videos. They actually understood the kind of physical properties of what makes the world the world.
Yeah.
So what makes the world the world? Where there's like a couple of physics laws, there's gravity, about how objects interact. There's like occlusion, there's like the way light bounces and reflects, the way objects and people and fabrics and materials move in the space. There's a lot of learnings about, pulling and pushing that models have effectively learned, right? You've learned that you've seen it so many times that you start predicting kind of the world, you start simulating the world. Actually, there's a theory in neuroscience that actually thinks very similar about how we think. That in a way, we humans are a prediction machine. We're simulating the world all the time. All the time we're looking at it and we're trying to predict what's going to happen next. And so we've come to a similar conclusion with video models. We're realizing that video models are effectively simulation systems. They can not only create pretty pixels, they can simulate how the world works. And a simulation system is really a very powerful technology because you can start simulating a lot of things. So on the one side of things, you can think, well, what kind of things can I simulate? And the first thing people might think of is, well, can you simulate entertainment? Can you simulate people talking? Can you create explosions and dinosaurs? And the answer is yes, you can simulate all of that. But that's also like a very small fraction of what kind of things can you simulate? Can I simulate, I don't know, a car driving on the street? I can simulate a car driving on the street. If you can simulate a car driving on the street, then you can technically and theoretically train or create a system that learns how to drive on simulated environments. And it's way cheaper to do that than to actually do it in the real world. Can you learn and can you simulate how a robot should pick up this cup? Yes, you can also simulate it. You start like simulation becomes like a core fundamental piece of I would say how we want to think and how we think about it moving forward. And world models are just a natural evolution of video models.
Yeah, because hearing from you all about that reminds me of the video models making video.
Correct.
Like simulating.
They're just simulation.
The same thing.
It's the same thing. I mean, video models, if you look at a video model right now, if you look at what they're doing, you might think of, okay, it's just like a person walking, but there's actually so much more happening behind the scenes. The model has learned how people walk, how fabrics move, how action and consequence are happening, what the gravity should affect those bodies, how light should bounce on many different things. It has learned physical properties of the world.
And sounds as well, right?
It learns everything about the world. It learns how the world works, And I mean, if I take this, I start putting water over it, you know what's going to happen next. You can predict in your world, in your mind, you're imagining what's happening next.
The water's going to spill.
Right. So you can predict that, right? That's what I mean by you're simulating what happens and you can react basically on that. And these video models are basically that. They're simulation systems. And so the path to get to world models is via video models, because video models have enough information about the world that at some point they start just encoding the patterns of that world. And once you have a simulation system, there's so many applications of things you can do with that, and that's what we're really excited about.
So how do you want to expand the domain as Runway with more work models?
We're expanding the kind of use cases, as you can imagine. I think one of the kind of key components and key factors in this is the other approaches to AI have been mostly on the language side, right? So language models are great, but language models are not trained on reality. Language models are trained on, well, language, right? They haven't not seen physics before.
Yes.
They don't understand what putting water over a table means. They have only learned about the descriptions of that. So you're training language models on this abstract layer of reality, which is you're training AI models to generate or understand language. What we're doing is we're training on this layer. We're training on reality. We're training on simulating reality.
Yeah.
And so what enables that to do is that you can start tackling much more verticals or specific industries. So robotics for us is one of the things we're spending a lot of time. One of the key components of progress in robotics will come from models that can understand the world better than any other technique has ever done before. And there's a thing called, there's a version of video models or a version of world models that specifically aim at solving that. They're called world action models. So world action models are world models that are prepared and trained specifically to make robots think about the world and act in the world. Yeah.
How are you going to bring this technology into reality? Like, are you talking to robotics, like manufacturers?
Of course, yeah. That's already happening. One of the reasons we're spending more time in Japan is Japan has a large economy and industry in the robotics world. And so that's already underway. Like these world models are only a couple months old, but they really are showing incredible promise and results in policy.
Who are you talking to?
We're going to share more about kind of, who we're working with, but you can imagine it's all the usual suspects.
Okay, Japanese, like robotics.
Of course.
Giants.
Yes.
Okay. So how are we going to see the runways, the work models working in actual like a factory or the industrial space, or what kind of the real use case is going to be?
I mean, look, I don't think we're too far from having just general purpose robotic systems. It would be great to have a autonomous system that can move in an environment and do all sort of different actions that can help sort of different ways. The reason we don't have that is I think it's very hard for a robotic system, for an autonomous system to reason about the world and just make decisions in things they've never seen before. We're in a studio, there's a lot of cables in the floor. It's very hard for a humanoid robot to try to move around here in the way that we can, like you can move your body, you can understand, you've done it so many times. Today, robots don't have those powers because they lack the brains, or they lack the sense of generalization. I think robotic systems these days are great at structured environments where you're in a factory and it's always the same box and it's always the same thing, and you can just pick the thing, put it here, but then when you put the box the other way around, it's just like it freaks out, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem is that, well, not only we need better hardware, which I think a lot of companies are working on, is you need better brains, and that's where we can help.
I have just two more questions. Jensen Huang was just here in Japan, like 2 weeks ago, I guess. You work with NVIDIA too, right?
Correct.
How do you work with NVIDIA in terms of the world models on physical AI?
Yeah, I mean, look, NVIDIA is by far the best computer accelerator of the world. I mean, if you want to train models, there's probably no other partner you want to have that's not NVIDIA. And Jensen has been a huge supporter of Runway for a long time. I'm very grateful to be able to work alongside them and learn from a lot of what they are doing. And a lot of what we've done is actually like we've shared with the public on our latest research with them was on training and creating real-time video models. So being able to, one of the key things in world models is you need to act on them. You need to be able to change the course of an action. So again, if I'm looking at the paper, I need to be able to move the paper and have a consequence on it. You're acting on the world. And a key component of that is it needs to run hopefully in real time. So we've developed with them one of the first previews of real-time video models. We announced this a couple months ago on GTC, and it ran on Vera Rubin, which is the next generation of chips. So a lot of that collaboration and NVIDIA comes from the two companies being aligned on what we believe needs to be true and needs to happen, and that's one of the many things we do with them.
Okay. So last but not least, but where do you see yourself in the company in the next year or next 3 years. But 3 years is even like such a long time in AI. But how do you see the future?
I think you're right. I mean, 3 years, 5 years a year is like, it feels like decades in AI. So it's hard to predict. I think there are a couple fundamental facts and truths about the world that we believe are only gonna, accelerate over time. And if we need to have the company, think about the company over the next couple of months and years, those things need to be the driver of how we operate. And one of them is change, continuous change. The company has to continuously be changing, moving markets, being able to rethink itself continuously as you learn more. We're doing many things today that we just never thought we could. We're discovering new things. The market is changing. You have to just react consistently. And the second thing is you have to be practical and being in the world. I think we want to be a company that not only reinvents itself consistently and thinks about what it does consistently, differently all the time, but also has an impact in the world. I think it's great to be a research lab and think about all the research, but if you don't have like consistent, real impact in the world, then I don't think it matters. And so I don't know what the company's going to look in 5 years. I wish I could tell you. I just honestly don't know. But hopefully those two things will still be in the DNA and the soul of the company.
Okay. ここまでランウェイの共同創業者兼 CEO のクリストバル・バレンズエラさんとハリウッドからロボットへ動画生成 AI の革命児というテーマでお送りしてまいりました。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございます。ぜひチャンネル登録と高評価、クロスディグの公式 X のフォローもお願いいたします。ニュースレターの配信も始めてますので、ぜひ概要欄からご登録ください。Great to hear all of that.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you for coming.